Doctor Strange, I need your help to make everyone forget that I'm Spider-Man.
There's nothing a little lobotomy cannot fix.
Oh, sorry, wrong franchise. Sir, I need your help.
Multiverse time.
Wow!
Was that random, overly zany, and a little confusing? That's how it felt like watching this movie. But it was better. I mean, the movie was better. But like this little piece of heaven I just made you witness, the movie Spider-Man No Way Home was also filled with several references, and things just happened because, hey, why not? Overall, it was a very fun experience, but it wasn't a great example of storytelling or anything like that. But it's not supposed to be a masterpiece like that, right? Once you accept it as just a fun film, it's enjoyable enough. But with everything said and done, I think, could just be my impression, but I do think that this movie will hit the late generation millennials like myself a little differently than maybe the Zoomers or Gen Xers or I don't know. But I'll explain that later on. I say this because something about this movie did affect me in a very surprising way. And I wonder if anyone else of my generation felt what I did. And this is because I think this movie accidentally became something I don't think it was meant to be by the writers or the director. I'm not sure people did this consciously, is what I'm saying. But I don't know, it might go down in cinema history as something unique, to say the least. Am I just saying gibberish? No, I'm not. Let me explain. First off, let's talk about the movie itself and then go on from there. This movie was a lot of things. Quirky, random, with some flaws, but it had a surprisingly good overall central plot that really picks up after the first 30 minutes of the movie. And it actually solves a serious issue that I had with the first two Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, by the way. And I didn't expect this at all. Like, 10 years later, this glaring issue is finally solved in a surprisingly entertaining whirlwind of colorful characters. Everyone else is saying that this movie is fantastic, great, amazing, fabulous, the best thing that ever happened since sliced bread, etc. And yeah, it's good. But really only after those first 30 minutes. Because until then, we're really just watching what we saw in the trailers. If you guys saw the trailers, you saw the first 30 minutes of the movie. The trailers revealed everything, basically. Except in the movie, it goes a little more in-depth to what was revealed in the trailers. But having seen basically everything before, it just really took the winds out of my sails, you know what I mean? I was just sitting there in the theaters waiting for them to go through the checklist of what was already in the promotional material for the movie, mixed in with teen college drama and simultaneously cringy yet endearing teen romance. Teen romance, yay! Oh my god, I really don't like teen romance. But the Spider-Man movie kind of made it work. I mean, it was a little touching, more than I thought it was going to be. I thought I was going to have my eyes rolling inside my head, but not at all. I could buy that these were two young people in love. And it kind of reminded me of my own teen years. One thing that was in the movie that wasn't in the trailers, though. The movie explained that Doctor Strange spell thing with more death. Because at first when I saw the trailer, I was like, this doesn't make any sense. Memory is derived from electric brain signals, right, in my head. What the heck does making people forget have to do with messing with space and time and multiple universes and stuff? I thought Doctor Strange was a brain surgeon, for crying out loud. Wouldn't magically messing with everyone's neurobrain chemistry take a lot less energy than messing with a multiverse? It makes no sense. And it still kind of doesn't make any sense in the movie. But when Strange explains it, the explanation they give makes a little bit of sense. But in my opinion, it was still kind of a forced way to make all the fun shenanigans happen, you know? The Into the Spider-Verse movie with Miles Morales had a better explanation, right? Spider-Man touched the energy of the Super Collider, right? And the energy touched his DNA and it pulled in other versions of himself. That's science, bro. It's the science. Although the Super Collider does bring people in that don't have Peter Parker's DNA, like Gwen Stacy and that Japanese girl and her robot and that pig. So it still kind of doesn't make any sense either, but what you gonna do, right? Overall, I did think that the Miles Morales movie, when compared to this one, was a better film overall, as an isolated story. But this live-action movie did hit me differently. And it did hit me in the feels, man, with that whole nostalgia trip going on. And yeah, although it's very tempting to compare these two movies, right? Into the Spider-Verse and Spider-Man No Way Home, since they're basically the same setup. Different versions of Spider-Man and villains interacting with each other. We can explore the differences and the merits of each one in another video. Let's focus on the movie in question for this video. Right, so MJ. MJ in this movie was surprisingly an endearing character. She was a bit annoying, you know? Like, oh, the insufferable teen adolescent political activist type. It's like, oh my god. But all the annoying parts of her character, she literally dropped for this movie. And she wasn't defined by her political positions or her quirkiness or, you know, teen awkwardness or the loner girl type. She was just MJ with her own particular characteristics. She felt more like a real person, and I liked her. And I thought she has to be one of the better Spider-Man girlfriends, although I think Gwen is a close second. Surprisingly, speaking of Gwen, Andrew Garfield was the Spider-Man that I liked the most in this movie, which is shocking considering that he has the worst films out of all the other Spider-Man. But before I get into spoiler territory, I just have to say one thing, and it's gonna be a little strange, I guess.
It's a pun, get it?
But what I really felt about this movie was that this was very much like a kid's movie. But I say that not in the sense that like, oh, it's like SpongeBob with superheroes. What I really mean is that this movie is for your inner child. It's meant for people like us that grew up with the Toby McGuire films, or at least partly for us. And it's trying to bring us back to that childhood feeling. I really got that sensation while watching it. Which is why they mention Scooby-Doo all the time in this movie.
Scooby-Doo this crap.
They make Scooby-Doo references because, yeah, the movie knows what it's doing. It does it so well that this movie itself kind of seems like a child's make-believe game, you know? I mean, I tried explaining this to a friend of mine, but he didn't really get it because he didn't play these games as a kid with his friends. But, you know, playing make-believe? When I was a kid, with my cousins, we would play make-believe all the time. And we'd all pick different characters, and we'd be like, oh, I'm Superman. And my cousin would say, oh, I'm Wolverine, I'm Hercules. But, you know, these characters, they don't exist in the same universe. So we would play little story games where Superman would meet Wolverine, and then they would fight. And who are you? Well, I'm Wolverine. Well, I'm Superman. I'm Hercules. And then they would have misunderstandings, but then they would interact with each other, and we would make up stories. And this movie felt like that. Like when these colorful characters from other realities, they all meet each other. They're like, well, who are you? Well, I am this guy. And it felt so much like a kid's game, down to random characters pulling superpowers out of their asses. You know, it's like, I have magic powers now. It's something I can do. I can do that now. And then the other kid goes all like, what? No, you don't have magic powers. It makes no sense. Your character can't have magic powers. It's not fair. But then the other kid goes all like, yeah. I got magic now. It's in my family ancestry or something. It's like, wow. But then you just roll with it, right? You just go with it. Random stuff keeps happening in the movie, and they do give reasons for it, although, like I said, the reasons often feel forced. It's not a spoiler to say that all three Spider-Man from the different live-action movies all meet each other in this movie. And the way they do is really forced. I mean, super forced. But it's fun, and it gets the job done. And that's the thing, this movie's fun. Some people say that they think it was the best Spider-Man movie overall. I wouldn't say that, but it is a very unique movie for reasons that I'll explain later on. Just bear with me. Now, despite how I'm saying things, I'm not really criticizing the movie yet, because none of these things are really annoying to me. And I don't think they'll be annoying to most people. I think, you know, our adult brains will figure some of this stuff out, but the inner child, man, this movie is all about the inner child. And the main criticisms I have with this movie, the humor in the movie, a lot of the times is too cringy and it takes a little way too long, and they repeat the same joke over and over again, you know? Kind of like this.
Sir, I need your help.
Please, Peter, we saved half the universe together. I think we're beyond you calling me sir.
Okay, well, how about Stevie? How about Steve-O?
No.
Ah, come on. Don't be a stranger.
Well, I mean, the humor in the movie is better than that, but you get the point, right? It's a lot of the times they keep repeating the same things over and over again. Like myself, saying that they repeat the same thing over and over again. And this movie has the same flaw that I have, is what I'm saying. And the second criticism I have is that although this movie was really good for, the nostalgia and, making me feel like a kid again. I do wish that this movie had taken itself a little more seriously. Something serious happens in the movie, and I think the movie itself could have handled it better if the movie took itself more seriously and was more epic in scope. Because although this was a fun movie and very nostalgic, this could have been an incredibly epic piece of cinema. You know, this premise of a hero meeting different versions of himself, especially with heroes that most of us grew up with. But these three characters meeting, it could have been so much more than what it was. Which is why I think this movie ended up failing in what it set out to do. From what I understand, this movie was trying to be the flagship hit of Marvel phase, I don't even know anymore. I mean, it's been 10 years at this point. And some kid was born when Iron Man came out, and now he's becoming an insufferable edgy teen on TikTok or whatever young kids do now. But the lack of seriousness in this movie and all that zany, fun aspect to it, combined with these old childhood heroes of mine on screen interacting with the new generation, ended up giving me an end of an era type movie feel. A lot of people discuss whether superhero fatigue is finally going to take Marvel out, and if the failure of the Eternals movie means that people are getting tired of superheroes. And some also have said that the superhero genre is like the Western genre. And I was inclined to believe that at first, but with the hype that this movie generated, I started to think that maybe they were wrong, and that we were in fact going to see superheroes become a major force, because maybe the superhero genre is just a very versatile genre and it could go on and dominating the cinemas for another decade or two. But after watching this movie, I go back on my position of agreeing with the superhero fatigue guys. Instead of this Spider-Man movie giving fuel to the superhero genre, I feel like it gave me an incredible sense of closure. Like, I don't know, like it's time to move on. Like, this was a great ride that started with Toby McGuire Spider-Man, and now it's time to move on to other interests. That's just something that I personally felt. Because if you think about it, this massive superhero dominance of the box office didn't begin with Iron Man or Marvel Studios. It began with Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, or X-Men 1 by Bryan Singer, or the myriad of Batman or Superman movies that came out in the 20th century. It's all debatable. But I think that this formula of the light-hearted superhero film, you know, done in the right way, this is something that really began with that first Spider-Man film by Sam Raimi. And you can see that Sam Raimi's style very much still influences the Marvel movies that came after those three Spider-Man films. And I really do feel that those films were the beginning of it all, at least for late generation millennials like myself. Which is why Toby and his rogues gallery of villains didn't feel out of place at all with the other Marvel characters from the MCU. They fit right in with the other outlandish beings of this universe, like wisecracking raccoons and tiny superheroes and incest? Is that incest? Is he kissing his niece? Man, time travel, am I right? Anyway, there was so much hype for this movie that I really thought for a second there that Marvel was gonna manage to restart the superhero genre, because the Marvel machine seems to be slowing down. But by having Toby and Andrew Garfield and Tom Holland all in the same screen, it just cemented the fact that things have come full circle. If anything, I feel like this particular formula of the superhero film is pretty much spent at this point. I think that this take on a superhero, pioneered by Sam Raimi, with the humor, the lighthearted fun, the random gags, with some well-placed dark moments here and there, I think it's done. I think it was great while it lasted, but I think I feel like we can move on now from this formula. But that's just me. Now, for the spoiler discussion. If you haven't seen the movie, I suggest that you guys come back and discuss with us the spoilers later. But if you've already seen the movie, or you just don't care, then let's keep going. Right, so Aunt May's death, that was interesting, and it kind of hit me, but it wasn't nearly as impactful as, say, Gwen's death in the Amazing Spider-Man 2 movie, even if that movie sucked. But that death was more emotional to me than Aunt May's death here. And I don't know, it kind of felt like they were forcing it a little too much, just trying to get that moment of seriousness. But I don't know how I feel about that. But I did like the fact that she died to prove to Peter that it's okay to risk your life trying to do the right thing. Sacrifices that have to be made to do the right thing don't invalidate the right thing, and doesn't mean that the right thing is not worth doing, even if you're going to have to sacrifice everything. I think that was a good message, though. So overall, I liked it. But one thing I didn't like was that the three Peter Parkers do they make the cures for all the supervillains from a high school science laboratory? What the heck is this? Like Scooby-Doo?
Scooby-Doo this crap.
Oh wait, no, yeah, it is Scooby-Doo. That's the point. This movie is Scooby-Doo, as the movie itself says. But it just makes me think like, did no one else think of this before? If you can cure these guys with random materials found in any single high school, then wouldn't Mr. Brain Scientist Magic Wizard here be able to cure these guys with a wave of his hand? Way to make him look like an asshole, you know what I mean? If Peter the high schooler could fart out a cure in a few hours, you'd think that Strange would be able to... But that bastard didn't even try. And why did they cure that lizard guy anyway? He doesn't die in his movie, and he gets cured anyway. So why not just leave him in the corner and just focus on curing the other guys, you know? Just trap him, and focus on curing the other guys, and then just send him back and he'll be fine. Why even have the lizard guy show up in this movie? Wouldn't Dane DeHaan's goblin character make more sense? I mean, he needed a cure in his own movie. That was the entire arc of his character, the search for a cure. But I know why he didn't show up. Nobody liked Dane DeHaan's goblin. And it's stuff like that, these obvious story choices which would make sense for this movie, they obviously didn't take for pure fan service. These decisions were obvious, and it removed the immersion of the film for me sometimes, as I could see the hand of the executives behind the movie all the time. Also, that kid, Ned, right? Pulling magic powers out of nowhere. Really? Magic? He was magic all along? He opens a portal out of nowhere and Andrew Garfield shows up? Like, and yeah, it's a funny little moment, and then Toby appears. And when he did, of course, everyone else in the theater started making these weird, excited animal noises. And I think this one girl was having a stroke or something, going all like, la, 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 la. But while everyone was excited, all I could think of was, wow, Toby, damn, we're getting old, bro. But yeah, my most serious criticism with this movie is that I wish that the interactions between the three Spider-Man happened earlier in the movie and lasted for longer. And went more in depth. Because that's why we're here, right? We came to this movie to watch these three guys interacting. And I feel like it happens near the end of the second act. And I don't feel cheated, but I wanted more of that. And if this is the only movie where all these three characters meet each other, then it was a hugely missed opportunity to have even more, fun, even more... explore this dynamic of a hero interacting with different versions of himself. That is an amazing premise, where the young hero can see the different options and choices that he could have taken and can see how he could become. Because Andrew Garfield and Toby McGuire, they're older than Tom Holland, right? So this would be a hero seeing different paths he can take. And this is amazing. I love that. And they kind of dropped the ball on this one by focusing on all the other zany stuff and not focusing on why we were there in the first place, to see Spider-Man interact with Spider-Man and Spider-Man. Now, moving on from the criticism, one major praise I have for this movie, which really took me by surprise, was that the whole plot goal of the movie, the whole situation that they're trying to solve, was actually one of the problems that existed in the first two Sam Raimi movies. And that is that the Green Goblin and Dr. Octopus, they're not really morally wrong. They're more like possessed, right? One is possessed by murder fluid and the other guy is possessed by an evil AI in his head. And they're more victims than they are villains per se. And which means that their deaths are quite tragic, especially the Green Goblin's death. And having Tom Holland go out of his way to save the Green Goblin from this possession and have him almost kill the Green Goblin for revenge, but then Toby comes and then saves his own nemesis from a younger version of himself, killing him because when Toby McGuire was younger, he almost wanted to kill, the guy that killed Uncle Ben. This was amazing. This was awesome. Now this is what we came to see. Right? The superhero interacting with his own flaws when the older version helped the younger version overcome some of his issues that he had in the beginning of his journey. This was fantastic. Now this was like chef's kiss, man. Chef's kiss. Fantastic. Made the movie. This is why the movie was good overall. And that final fight with the Green Goblin, man, that was amazing. Despite all the cool fights with all the other villains and all the special effects, that simple duel with the sunrise and the ocean around them, it was almost like one of those epic samurai duels, you know what I mean? No CGI monsters, no special effects, just two men battling it out with a lot of emotional baggage and intensity between them. Their fight becomes a resolution to this intense emotional conflict. This is how you make a fight, Marvel. You don't have to have the CGI fights at the end that everybody complains about at this point. Something like this. do more of this, these kind of fights, if you're gonna keep going for another 10 years of superhero stuff. I just love these simple duels in beautiful locations and where the lighting interacts with the fight. It's one of the reasons why I love samurai stuff. But yeah, whether or not the superhero genre and this Marvel formula is going to last another 10 years or not, I wouldn't be able to say. But I did like the fact that I watched this movie, and this movie did take me back to my childhood, and it also gave me a sense of closure. It does kind of feel like an end of an era. Endgame was not the last hurrah that ended the Marvel superhero film. I think that this movie was a perfect bow on top. But that's just my own personal opinion. And what did you guys think of the movie? But also this video. I did improvise a little bit more than usual in this video. If you guys liked it, please let me know. And if you're new here to the channel and you like the content, please like and subscribe. It helps me a lot. And thank you all for listening to my ramblings. Have a good day, my friends.